first and see what, then I have a statement I want to make how we're going to go about doing this.
That was what I was going to ask you, because I think everybody was kind of hesitant. So I was going to ask, do you want to, do it by department, and then as we want to talk about that, then I assumed that was going to be kind of the standard format
Right.
you were going to do.
Same way we've always done
Right,
in
great.
the past. I'm going off of the analysis. So as each department's listed, that's how we will go. So that first department being is District Attorney's Office. Are there any questions for the District Attorney? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the, I'm sorry, are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Next one is the Fire Department. $500,000 for contractor maintenance, repairs on fire facilities, and miscellaneous medical safety equipment. Are there any questions? Councilman Glover.
Okay. I know I've spoken to several of the firefighters, et cetera. Will this actually be adequate enough to where the equipment is operational, to where you guys have all the equipment you need, and where you're able to be in service with the equipment and operational the way you need to be? Is this going to get you up to speed, I guess is the best way to ask the question.
If you would, someone from the fire department who is
Yes, sir. This is to take care of equipment for both the medical and the fire side. It will replace things such as stretchers, hoses, and various equipment that's on the apparatus.
Okay. And as far as the medical side, will you always have enough, I guess, equipment operational to be out in the streets with all the crews? And because I think there's been some discussion in the past that some of the ambulances were not up to speed, but I think after we bought the new ones, I think that kind of eliminated some of that possible stress.
This is actually going to help us put 2 new ambulances on the street this fiscal year. That was something that was in the mayor's budget that the council approved.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other, we will move on. General Hospital. Any questions for General Hospital's appropriation? Seeing none. General Services, $8,500,000 for fleet replacements and major maintenance on general service buildings. Have any? Councilman Glover.
Here. Can we talk about, as far as fleet replacement, the piece of that, or that component, as far as what that actually will be? And I know it's in some of the sheet. I was trying to just understand exactly what departments that's actually going to involve.
You were sent an Excel spreadsheet that has the replacement and the list of the departments and the equipment that we're recommending to be replaced. Doesn't mean that that's a one-for-one as far as the brand of the equipment or whatever, but that's what we're recommending. We will be working with departments. There are times that their priorities are a little different than the replacement priorities, and we make those minor changes at that time.
Well, I guess specifically, let me ask, does this include motorcycles for the police department?
Yes, it does. There's 25 replacement motorcycles in that recommendation.
And I assume that's where we're talking about the difference in what the naming may be. It may be a different brand of bike versus what they may be driving right now.
That's correct. It will go out for procurement, and then that will be determined through the procurement process.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no others, we'll move on to Health Department. $50,000 for miscellaneous machinery, equipment, medical supplies, and other repair and maintenance services. Anyone wish to speak on this? Seeing none, move on to Informational Technology Services, $3,400,000 for end-of-life servers and network equipment, and a 311 call system, constituent relationship program, and PIP project. Any councilman would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, moving on to Justice Integration System, $1,250,000 for the e-filing system, PIP project among JIS, Circuit Court Clerk, Criminal Court Clerk, and Juvenile Court Clerk. Councilman Pulley.
Yes, I assume we got representatives from all 3 here, the Criminal Court Clerk, the Juvenile Court Clerk, and the Circuit Court Clerk. Is that right?
They are all here present and ready to go.
Oh, good. Well, I guess I've got questions for all 3 as it relates to this. So I attended your PIP project, and it's nice to hear that we're moving in that direction. I kind of wanted to know where we are in relation to e-filing, if we're doing that now, if we're up to snuff, and where each of you are in that process.
Councilman, we're not e-filing now. That's what this project will do. It will allow us to e-file documents. People can sit in their offices. They can, attorneys, law firms can sit in their office and actually file 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, can actually file lawsuits in our department.
Now, I'm a product of the federal system, so I understand how it works there, and I'm just kind of wanting to be educated here. So tell me what you need to get rolling in order to do this. Have you historically gone back and scanned all of your documents? And if so, how far are you required to go back and scan and upload?
We have, in our office, we have scanned everything from 93 forward. From 93 back, we've scanned every order all the way back to the beginning of Davidson County, Nashville, Tennessee. All of those documents, orders, are scanned on our system. And if we got to a point where we had paper that was unable to be scanned because it was so old, we stopped them. But we go all the way back to beginning of Davidson County.
And is that the same case with all three offices?
We at the Juvenile Court Clerk's Office were very fortunate due to the 2010 flood. Prior to 2010, there had not been really a lot of scanning done in our office. So back then, the council appropriated enough money that with the FEMA money, and we were able to go back to the 93 records, which at the time were the 18 and beyond date of birth, 18-year-old. Once they age out, the files will go to archives when they turn 19. And so the chances of us needing that file are slim. So we have all the pleadings and orders scanned from 93 to current. So anything that comes through our office today, we scan it. So we go back now 23 years.
You go back 23 years?
We go back 23 years from 2016 to 93.
Okay, and you're ready to go when this stuff is ready to happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're ready. Thank you.
How's everyone?
Thank you, Ms. Gentry.
We have not had a scanning project, and our records go back to about 1840. But the fact is that the e-filing system, the fact that we have not started a scanning process doesn't affect us as it does the other two departments. It does give us an opportunity, though, to begin our scanning process because it gives us a document information system that will allow us to begin a scanning project within our office. The scanning project within our office is going to be huge budgetarily, but the e-filing, we always can start from this point forward. We do have all the records in paper form in warehouses and what have you, and over time, we hope to start scanning back to alleviate that. But we will, of course, be scanning forward to not have to add so much bulk to our already stressed paper warehouse.
So are you going to scan historical documents at some point in time?
Yes.
And
but that's not part of this project. That will have to be a separate project that, not fortunately, but the juvenile court clerk had the flood, and they were able to be funded for that. That's going to take a different source of funding and another approval from the council.
So you need funding in order to get that done?
To do the scanning that we need? Absolutely, absolutely. But we're okay right now. And it at least puts the document information system in place for us to be able to manage once we do start the filing process. I mean, the scanning process.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Council Mendez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to ask each of the three offices whether the e-filing is going to be mandatory or voluntary e-filing for practitioners.
Councilman, in circuit court, because it's going to be circuit, probate, general session, civil, we'll always have to have a mechanism to allow people to file documents at our counter What we will do is, once those are filed at our counter in a paper format, we will e-file it for them. So we'll always have the pro se litigants that come in and have to file paperwork. So it will be mandatory, but they'll be able to do it in a paper form, and we'll turn that paper form into an electronic form.
Okay, and thank you for that, especially for the pro se. I'm glad that's the case. I would, when you get around to making the rules, encourage you to make it mandatory for lawyers, so we don't have to have taxpayers paying for lawyers to file stuff on paper, so you guys sit around and scan it.
If they file it on paper, it will be electronically filed. Paper will be handed back to them. But I think most of the bar will take advantage of filing from their office.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We, on the other hand, councilmen, deal with about 80% of pro se persons coming to our counter, so we will continue allowing paper filing, but we, as we've done in the last 6 years, will scan it and have it documented there in the system. But we will also allow them to e-file at the same time. But we'll probably do exactly what Mr. Rooker's doing and hand it back to them and have it in the system.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And ours is not mandatory, and we've got 18 judges that, of course, agree with everything all the time. And you know, everybody has a different philosophy and theory on it, but over time, just having the ability to file electronically, we'll be pushing it very heavily and start utilizing it where we can as much. And I think what we're going to have is a culture change, and that change will happen over time. And I think everybody will start utilizing it more. But in our offices right now, it will not be a mandatory, but it definitely will be allowed, e-filing.
All right, thank you. And you all already know this from, I'm sure you talked to a bunch of other courts, but places where it's mandatory for at least the lawyers cuts down on the clerk's office work an awful lot. And I know it's hard with the judges, but trying to get the judges to lead on it and actually use it helps a lot too.
I didn't say that. You got it. I didn't say it was hard. I just said we had 18 judges and they have different
That's all
philosophies.
right. I said it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank. More for finance. The JIS e-filing system is neither, it seems to me, equipment or repairs to buildings. So how does it end up in the 4% fund? Or under what construction is this ending up in the 4%?
Yeah, that description, I mean, legal may have to jump in here as well, but 4% allocations have been allowed for technology projects, and I don't know if they have characterized that as equipment. Software. Considered equipment, software and hardware. Yes, and we've considered that for years for software enhancements as being eligible for 4%.
So for our court system, and it's very modern and wonderful, it is a the $1.25 million is for a software purchase.
Yes, it's for a software implementation, and there may be some JIS is back there, but there are probably some servers and things of that nature from a technical standpoint that will also have to be purchased.
Okay, but it would not be for some contract for people to manually scan documents.
No.
It wouldn't be for that kind of service. It would be.
Yes, it's to put an actual system in place. I don't want to call on someone for you, but it may be worth Natalie just jumping in for 20 seconds or something to explain that piece.
Sure, and you're absolutely right. This is primarily for a software purchase, and there is maybe a small percentage of that which would be used to purchase hardware for it to go on. But this has nothing to do with the actual scanning of documents.
Okay. Well, thank you. It just, the 4% fund is so narrowly defined. I just wanted to make sure we were in compliance.
Yes.
Thank you. Seeing no other queue, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate the explanation. And
And that's 17 judges, so the decision might be a little easier instead of 18. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Parks and Recreation, $250,000 for equipment and supplies for consolidated maintenance, community centers, golf, sportsplex, wave country, Parthenon, cultural centers, arts centers, nature centers, and park administration. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Pridemore. I just want to express my thanks to Director Lynch and his staff for breaking this out a little bit more than the last 4% request. And I wonder if somebody in Parks could just speak to that consolidated maintenance line item. Is that mowers? What is that exactly?
Well, your thanks for the director. He is here to respond.
It would be for some of the small mowers that we don't put into general services account.
I guess that was my question, is kind of what is that breakdown for what is in general services versus what you all maintain internally?
General services does all our trucks, all our cars, right. the bucket truck, things like that, and vans and things like that. But the mowers that we use to cut the golf courses, the mowers we use on ball fields and out, and push mowers and the weed eaters and things like that, that all of our maintenance staff have access to, doesn't come under them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, we'll move on to police. $500,000 for officer response kits per proposed by council. 209A computer equipment, bond robot upgrades, fit test, and photo printer. Councilman Glover.
Here. Unfortunately, when we began working on this, I don't think we realized the necessity of perhaps this, but if we could, I'd love to have police or someone kind of walk up and talk about what this does, given the climate of what's happened around the country with Orlando, Dallas, and Baton Rouge. You know, I think this is extremely appropriate, and I know there were some questions as are we investing taxpayer money properly, and when I initially introduced this and then it was rolled into this, I think it's kind of important for the public to understand exactly what this does and what it can mean for if we have situations arise here.
Captain Hager.
Yes, sir. Are you speaking to the kits? What that basically provides is one bag that an officer can put tools that are unique to these situations in this one bag, instead of trying to gather up that equipment at the scene of one of these incidents. And the officer can then respond to the incident with everything available at his side.
And those response kits they're prepackaged, or do the officers have to pack them individually for what they think they're going to need?
They will be prepackaged at our training academy with the equipment that's most commonly used and approved.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, we'll move on. Next is the public library, $2 million for books, periodicals, and library materials. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Pridemore. Director Oliver, could you just share how this is kind of distributed across the system, all these materials?
Sure. Last year we purchased about 180,000 items for the library, and we analyze each location and we understand the needs based on holds requests, reserves, other sorts of things, and the special collections that are being built. The 180,000 items that we purchased last year, for us the real key is the format, because whereas at one time we were primarily purchasing books, now we're purchasing books, e-books, DVDs, different sorts of videos, the online information you see on the catalog, that sort of thing. So it's really spread across the spectrum, but we certainly pay attention to what people are requesting and what they want by individual location.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Seeing no others in the queue. Last is Public Works, $500,000 for miscellaneous equipment. Anyone wish to speak on that request? If not, that concludes each individual request. So we're back on all in favor, RS 2016-307. I'm sorry, Councilman Mendez.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to, after we got through each individual one, Finance comment. I think last time we did one of these, the finance director talked about how they'd reviewed these and found them appropriate, and I just wanted to hear from Metro Finance about that.
Want that now? As in terms of our process for how we decide what to bring forward, during the budget process each year, every department is asked to submit what we call operating capital request, and that is several tens of millions of dollars a year, amounts that we could never, where we could never fund everything that is submitted as a request. In the budget ordinance that you all approve during the budget process, there is an estimate of the 4% availability, which is approved by the Metro Council. For FY17, I think that that number's about $27 million. So during the year, as the actual revenues are available to Metro to spend, we go in and we look at all of the requests that have been submitted by all Metro departments, and we will allocate those resources and bring resolutions before the council at least 3 times a year. Generally, it's about 3 times a year for you all to consider 4%, what we call 4% requests for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back on the vote. All in favor of RS 2016-307? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2016-308, Pride Moore is a sponsor, appropriates $2,150,000 from 4 accounts of the general fund of the General Services District to various nonprofit organizations selected to receive Community Enhancement Grants Funds Program. Duly second. There is an amendment, a substitute to this. All in favor of the substitute? Councilman Cooper? Hold on a minute. Okay.
Once again, a question, I guess, for finance. If someone would just walk us through the competitive process by which this is awarded. It's so hard with people doing so many worthy things for our community with this money. How can you decide, and what's the process for deciding?
Mr. Cooper, can we get adopt the substitute first and then discuss it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, Mr. Cooper.
Oh, sorry. The same question. If you just walk us through the process for identifying the money.
Early in the calendar year, the administration released instructions to nonprofits for them to apply for assistance from Metro through this Community Enhancement Fund. Approximately $2.1 million was set aside in the budget for this purpose for FY17. Departments not departments, but nonprofits are invited in to for an orientation to describe the priority areas that have been established by what we call the CEF Steering Committee. The CEF Steering Committee is chaired by our Vice Mayor, and it also consists of several department heads. We have some community members on that committee, as well as some mayor's office staff. And Councilman Pridemore, the Budget and Finance Chair, was also on the committee. So whoever is sitting in the Budget and Finance Chair is generally assigned to that committee. And they set the parameters and instructions that will be provided during the CEF process, where nonprofits come in and apply for the grants. We recruit outside evaluators to look at applications when they are submitted. And all of this is really happening during the budget process. So between January and April, generally, or actually May, is when all of this is going on. So the outside reviewers come in, they review those applications independently, and then they convene meetings over there in the Sunny West building. These meetings are open. nonprofits are invited in to sit down with those to sit in the audience while those reviewers look at their applications, and those reviewers make recommendations for funding based on the content of the application submitted. Then those recommendations go back to the steering committee for approval. And when the steering committee signs off, those go to the mayor for consideration. And after the mayor signs off, then we bring forward a resolution to this body to be allowed to issue the grant awards to these nonprofits. So immediately after this resolution passes, we will start that contracting process so we can start getting the money in the hands of the nonprofits to deliver services.
That answer. Councilman Mendez?
I was just the substitute and the original.
Do you want me to take that?
Mr. Jameson can answer that.
Okay.
Removed from, that you'll see under the after-school programs, the Center for Refugee and Immigrants of Tennessee, $46,500, and then the YMCA of Middle Tennessee of $31,100. The Center for Refugees is essentially about to be defunct, if not already. The YMCA had, I think, a certain threshold they needed to match that was not matched and no longer requests the $31,000.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Pradmore. My question is kind of based on Talia's remarks. Thank you. That was helpful to share how that works. How are nonprofits invited? I mean, we have a very vast nonprofit community. Do we maintain some sort of list? Do we invite those who have received grant money prior? Do you reach out based on the administration's areas of initiatives around education or domestic violence? How do you make sure that you're reaching the entire nonprofit community?
We do all of that, and we subscribe to several listservs, particularly with the Center for Nonprofit Management.
Great.
They provide us their mailing list, and we send out groups, emails to those groups. We also look at organizations that are registered through Giving Matters, which grabs just about everybody, but the outreach is far and wide. So anybody that we know about, we add them to our distribution list.
Great. So that Giving Matters listing, and that factors into the determination and so forth, how you look at them. And then could I ask Chair Pradmore, could we as a council just receive notice when this process begins and when these meetings take place next year?
Well, we can have finance or the director, the chair, would be willing, I'm sure would be willing.
Okay, to whom do I need to direct that request? Just not having known about this year at all, I would just ask that we as a council could be informed.
Well, the budget chair will definitely know because he's on the steering committee. So
Or she.
He or she. I'm sorry. That was a rhetorical. I'm sorry.
Well, so I guess my request is just then to the council office, Mr. Jameson, if you could please make sure the full council is informed just once that process is initiated and when the meetings are. That'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Glover.
I think the question's already kind of been answered, but it's $77,600 less than what the original appropriation was, correct? And then the final question is, this was already built into the operational budget that the council just approved last month, correct? Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council Lady Weiner.
I just have one quick question, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. The $53,200 for Vanderbilt University School of Nursing for after-school programs, do we know anything in particular about those programs? And if there are any other programs at any of the other nursing schools similar to that?
I can't speak to whether or not there are other services in the community that provide similar services.
So the School of Nursing is offering after-school services within the community?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we've already adopted it, we move on to the
a substitute.
Okay, all right, we have to vote on, that's a substitute. All right, and second, all in favor of the substitute? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2016-310, Pridemore and Gilmore sponsors, accepts a grant from the State Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to prepare for, respond to, and recover from public health threats. Have a motion. Duly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2016-311, Pridemore, Gilmore, and Allens, the sponsors, approves an amendment to a lease agreement between Metro Social Services, Department of Metro Social Service Department, Metro Homelessness Commission, and the City Road Chapel United Methodist Church for the use of additional office space. Do I have a motion? Is amendment? We haven't.
Proposal number. It simply changes the mandatory.
Okay. We do have an amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment? Opposed, none, so now, all in favor of resolution as amended? Opposed? Councilman Glover.
Yeah, just because I kept trying to read this and understand, the resolution would approve the First Amendment to the lease agreement. So how does this First Amendment versus what we've just done, what does that language change?
So the original amendment before you changed the number of square feet, office square feet that was being leased from 1,200 to a little over 1,600 feet. That changed slightly the monthly cost from $500 per month to $800 per month, and the long-term cost per year, $8,000 versus $9,600. The amendment that was adopted simply changes the mandatory referral number.
Okay, all right. It was a little confusing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, seeing no others in the queue, all in favor, RS 2016-311 as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2016-312, Pridemore and Gilmore, the sponsors, approves an amendment to the Tennessee Cooperative Agreement to Benefit Homeless Individuals Grant and the Metro Social Services Commission to develop the infrastructure of Tennessee and the treatment services systems for the population. Do I have a motion? Duly seconded. Any discussion? Sorry, Councilman Glover. Go ahead.
Same question, Mr. Jameson. Could you explain the First Amendment? Because, again, I can't really follow on what it actually meant.
Sure. So this amendment that is not being substituted or amended any other way has three differences from the original agreement. One is to allow this mode of treatment, critical time intervention, a medical term of art, but it's a special case management approach for people that need a certain level of assistance at a specific time. Another provision that reaching 80% of a goal does not result in a finding, which was in the original provision. The last one would allow the amount of time allowed to house someone to go from 1 month, which was deemed ineffectual, to a 3-month period.
Okay, the one that's most, as far as the 80% of enrollment goal will not result in a finding. Just if somebody can clarify that, because that made no sense to me.
Mr. Connolly probably can do a far better job than I am, if you want to call it.
Mr. Conley?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So this grant helps, well, it pays for people to go out and find folks who are experiencing homelessness on the street and help them housing. And so the original grant required that process to take 30 days from when the person is met on the street to when they're leasing up. And that was in light of just the amount of paperwork and like subsidies involved in our housing market, that was deemed to be unrealistic. So we asked for more time. So extended it from 30 to 90 days.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2016-313, Pridemore Gilmore sponsors, accepts an emergency solutions grant from the State Housing Development Agency to the Metro Social Services Commission to provide services to the homeless at those at risk from homelessness. Duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2016-314, Pridemore and Gilmore sponsors, appropriates grants funds from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to the Metro Action Commission for low-income housing energy assistance program services for eligible low-income customers. Do I have a motion? Duly seconded. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. My question has to do with the notification that goes out from them insofar as how we reach out to our senior population to let them know that this is available. I'm sure that many of them would qualify for this. I receive calls every year with regard to finding assistance in this area, so I just wondered how they go about getting the word out to the senior community in particular. And that's all I have. I'll put this back.
I don't know, is anyone here from the Social Services Commission or Action Commission?
Good afternoon, Marvin Cox, Metropolitan Action Commission Community Programs Director. Our outreach is done through media and our press release. Also, we go out to any events that the elderly is located, and we do send staff out to talk about our actual program. And in addition, if someone has been served in the previous year, we will mail them an application and let them know that the new fiscal year has begun.
Thank you. Do you do, may I just turn and, okay.
Please.
Do you do anything with like 50 Forward or the senior network? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Also, is that part notification through NES or Nashville Gas?
Notification is sent to, yes, sir. And also the customer receives an approval letter letting them know how much they were approved for.
Thank you. Councilman Cooper.
A quick question. The additional $1 million from 4.1 million to the 5.1 million, I'm assuming this is because of success, that you are finding more takers?
The additional dollars is that the THDA, Tennessee Housing Development Agency, they changed the fiscal year. We're going back to July 1, June 30th. We were operating on October 1 to September 30th, so that was effective July 1. Now we're operating on July 1 to June 30th. So that's why you see that $1 million.
It's
Yes,
just
sir.
an adjustment.
The
Okay.
4.1 is for the current year.
Okay, thank you.
Council Lady Dow.
I just had a quick question on like the administration of it. I know like this is providing assistance, but is it still that you will not provide any assistance if the lights have been cut off? I know we made some changes about reinstatement on lights and all of that. So if their lights have been turned off, can they still apply through this program?
That's on a case-by-case basis. We will contact NES to see, as long as it has not gone into collections,
Okay.
then we can assist that customer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Seeing no others in the queue. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2016-315, Council Lady Henderson, Councilman Elrod, and Pridemore sponsors, authorizes Metro to enter into a utility relocation contract with the Department of Water and Sewage Services and the Tennessee Department of Transportation to relocate certain water sewer facilities at the intersection Franklin Road and Harding Place and Battery Lane. Do I have a motion? Duly seconded. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Pridemore. I wonder if someone from Public Works can speak to how the local government investment pool with TDOT works in this particular case, and then just in general.
I think we have some individuals from Public Works. They're discussing which one's coming forward. Drawing straws. You win.
Well, this is Jim Snyder, Metro Water. This is actually a water project, but I mean, Council, I know you mentioned Public Works, so I'm.
Well, water or Public Works.
The investment pool, I may not have an answer for that, but I can tell you an awful lot about this agreement.
Okay, well, I would be interested in understanding. I had sent a request to figure out where exactly this will be. I understand this is a TDOT ramp queuing project for 65 But the fact that it's coming all the way back to Franklin Pike and Harding Place.
Actually, come away from the interstate.
Right.
Along Harding, right there at Franklin Road. It's that intersection. They're adding some turn lanes right there.
Exactly. So that was my question. I guess I can take that up in Public Works Committee more specifically, but can you speak to how these projects are funded through this state LGIP account, how that works?
I think Mr. Macy's
with
going to
Public
take
Works can probably better answer that question for you.
Okay.
These projects are funded through the state. We're using their money. And typically on these jobs, they'll invest in new traffic signals, which they turn over to us for maintenance. And so this agreement is for us to take that maintenance over when they're done working.
Okay, and this LGIP account, I mean, is that particular to county? Is that statewide? I mean, how do we sort of track what, I mean, this project is initiated solely by TDOT, or is it done in coordination with Public Works if they're adding turn lanes and so forth? How does that kind of the hierarchy work there?
It's their job, but they coordinate through us.
Okay, so it's a TDOT initiated project. They coordinate with you all for design purposes, or do they do the design work?
They do all the design and they coordinate through us.
Okay. And so being that it's initiated by them, the understanding from the get-go is that it's going to, all the funding for that is going to come out of this state account, correct?
Yeah, and are you on 316?
I'm on 315.
Oh, well, let me let the water.
Well, I apologize. I apologize, yeah. I'm on 315.
All right.
Yep. I guess they're related, though, somewhat, in that they're both TDOT projects.
If I can speak to the water part, since TDOT owns the right-of-way and the water line is within the right-of-way, we're there at their pleasure. So if they're going to make improvements to the intersection, which they are, and the finished product will be coordinated with, well, that project will be coordinated with Public Works from a traffic perspective and signaling perspective. But the reason this agreement's before you is we have to pay, Metro through Metro Water Services has to pay for that water line adjustment so that they can build their intersection. Because once again, they own the right-of-way.
All right, but you pay and then it is reimbursed.
We are not reimbursed for that water line relocation.
Okay, can you explain that?
TDOT owns the right-of-way, and we're there at their pleasure. And so if any adjustments are made, then we have to pay for them. Now, I will say this. We did make application to TDOT, and we asked to be reimbursed, and the answer was no.
And so, but this project is done at the initiation of TDOT.
That's correct.
Okay, well, maybe we can put some more color on that at the Public Works Committee tomorrow. I'd like to understand that better because I had emailed to inquire about this project specifically, so I would like a little more detail on it tomorrow, please.
From the traffic perspective?
From both perspectives of water and Public Works, please, tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We can do that.
The traffic portion is paid by TDOT, correct? Everything that they want is paid by them.
Correct. All we do is take it over to operate it after they build it and fix it up.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, all in favor of RS 2016-315? Opposed? Resolution passes. All right, we now go to bills on second reading. BL 2016-250, Councilman Road, Pridemore, and others, authorizes Director of Public Property to enter into a sublease agreement with Active Network LLC and Donaldson Corporate Center LP for temporary office space at 3015 Lebanon Pike. Councilman Mendez, you want to speak before we move forward? Councilman Mendez?
Yeah, I just need to be marked as abstaining on this one.
All right. Thank you. All in favor? Motion duly second. Now, Councilman Glover.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I know this one has been deferred a few times. Do we finally have this, everything hammered out, and are we ready to move forward with this? Mr. Cooper, I guess that's you're yachting. Okay, so we're moving on, and we should make all of this start happening. So the other pieces of the puzzle, with regards to the jail renovation and all of those other pieces, should start falling into place now. Mr. Cooper, I guess I'm asking the question to you.
That table, the lights out. I don't know when it's on or off. Go try it now.
Yes, this lease agreement is for the temporary location of the police department headquarters while the new facility is being built. And so now that this agreement is in place, then the police department will be able to move out into this location for 2 or 3 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes with 1 abstention. BL 2016-310, Pridemore Allen Elrod sponsors, amends the Metro Code regarding public proceedings for franchisees for fiber optic communication services. Do I have a motion? Duly seconded. Councilman Glover. Hold on. All right.
Chair, I'm going to direct the question to you because I have no idea who to really direct the question to, so hopefully we can point it where it needs to go from here. Help me understand exactly what we're giving up or what we're doing here with this with regards to fiber optic, and how is it going to affect, and I'm going to use AT&T, Google, any other fiber company that might want to come to Nashville. What does this do exactly, and what does it do with regards to public proceedings, so-called, by the full council versus a committee as we go forward?
Mr. Jameson has the answer to your
Thank you,
question.
sir.
So the current Chapter 626 is unusual for these sorts of applications in that it requires a public proceeding, not a public hearing, but a public proceeding that is run by council members or a select committee composed solely of council members. And during that proceeding, you have the applicant and you determine their legal, character, financial, technical, and other qualifications. That was viewed as somewhat cumbersome. We do not have very many of these, although that could change in the era of the vendors you noted. We only have one that is pending at the moment, the Tennessee backhaul, that goes to planning before it comes back before this body now. And this proposal is designed to somewhat streamline the provision whereby all of those characteristics, the legal background, the character of the applicant, their financial and technical qualifications, is submitted in a sworn affidavit from the applicant. If at any time the council determines that a public proceeding should nevertheless take place, it then goes forward. The way we are gearing those now and the way we will handle Tennessee backhaul, because that'll still be subject to the original version, is that it would go to a 3-part committee system of budget, planning, and public works, and that'll be scheduled, I believe, in August for that particular version.
And I guess with the backhaul, and I realized that I had a feeling this probably tied into that particular bill. Are we limiting ourselves to only giving the fiber contracting to one vendor, backhaul as an example, or I mean, because it's kind of confusing to me when I look at all of that.
I would not think so. I would be quick to note that this was not a request from Tennessee Backhaul, not the application. This was just a discussion within the courthouse about this is somewhat of an archaic, unusual system. Does it make sense the way it's drafted? Is this the most efficient? And the consensus was that as long as there is a mechanism for the members of the council at any time to request that public proceeding, that this would perhaps be more efficient.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes. BL 2016-311, Pridemore sponsors, amends ordinance 092-415 pertaining to the creation and membership of the Justice Information System of the Metropolitan Government. And there is an amendment, proposed amendment. Like, all in favor of the amendment? Opposed? The amendment passes. Have we moved for an amendment? All in favor?
I think it's the next one.
Well, proposed amendment.
Second one. Not an amendment.
There's been a clerical error. We're going to go back to the original bill. As original. Okay. I'll read it up. We'll do this properly. amends ordinance number 092-415 pertaining to the creation and membership of the Justice Information System of the Metropolitan Government. Duly second. Would you like, Mr. Mondale, would you like to speak or on this before we go forward, or?
Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any questions. It's just it's a housekeeping amendment. We want to change the name that everybody calls it now, so we'll be in sync with that. And we want to broaden our definition so that we can, by ordinance, JIS can represent other agencies that are involved in criminal justice that were not in existence back then, such as the Mayor's Office of Family Safety, the Gene Crow Advocacy Center. So we want to change the definition to say anybody who is involved in the administration of criminal justice in Davidson County can be one of JIS's customers under their new name of Justice Integration Services.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. This one is an amended.
Correct.
BL 2016-312, Council Lady Dow, Mendez, and others, requires Metro Council approval by resolution of the local sheriff of the location of the sheriff's new administrative offices facility prior to the disbursement of general obligation bond, funds, commercial paper, or any other funding toward this project. And there is an amendment. Council Lady Dow, you have an amendment?
Oh, okay. In the original piece of legislation, it didn't specify what type of funding. It just basically said any funding. And so I was more specific with the amendment to align it so that it encompasses any type of funding. So we do commercial paper, it's commercial paper. If we do general obligation bonds, it's that. So basically all that it does is just say any type of funding. I don't think anybody has an issue with it. It's just a little housekeeping from where it was originally written.
Thank you. Mr. Jameson, like to add to that.
Yeah, I think the amendment is actually clarifying that while this precludes disbursement of capital funds until the location of the jail has been approved by the council by resolution, this would make an exception for planning, design, and community engagement funds so that you can still have the discussion and perhaps educate the community. The bottom line, though, is that the original ordinance as drafted still would require the location of the jail to come back before this council for resolution before spending occurs, with those three exceptions.
Thank you for clarifying that. I failed to leave out that little part.
Okay, the members in the queue, is that for discussion of the amendment? Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Jameson, is this the final reading to do an amendment, or can we amend on third?
That is the final reading, so you would suspend the rules to amend on third.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking is because this one gives me a little bit of heartburn that if we're going to start getting into, and I understand the council lady's notion on this, but there could be unintended consequences, I'm afraid, that if we don't try to put this on property that's owned by Metro, there could be an additional expense that we could never foresee. And it almost is, if we're going to do this on the sheriff's department, we really, if we're going to start getting into every building that we're going to start doing, maybe we need to look at amending this to where we include all buildings that we do going forward. And so that's why I'm asking the question, because, I mean, this is not on the jail. This is on the administrative office for the sheriff's department. And so I think, and I understand the pushback from the council lady on wanting to understand where it's going to be. I thought the resolution, it was very clear they were going to come back to us, but now we seem to be getting down way into the weeds on getting down to actually saying this body has to approve the location before any money could be spent for that building.
What I would suggest that, and my humble opinion is that that's really towards the substance of the bill. You may want to get past the amendment first, allow a vote on the amendment, and then have that question raised. That's just a procedural suggestion.
Okay, then we'll do it that way, however we need to.
We'll take a vote on the amendment.
All right. Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Opposed? The amendment passes. Now, Councilor Dow or Mendez want to move as amended? Any discussion on the bill as amended?
So my question then, Mr. Jameson, is can we amend this here today to say that if we're not only the Sheriff's Department, but all governmental buildings going forward, and any governmental administrative businesses or buildings going forward?
Sure, you would suspend the rules and then recite that amendment. I'll take it down as quickly as I can, but
Okay.
that'd be the procedural mechanism.
Okay, that would be my request.
So Councilman Glover, I believe, is moving to suspend the rules and then offering a floor amendment to broaden this to all municipally owned buildings.
Administrative buildings.
Suspend the rules?
Yes.
Well, yeah, is that something you do in committee?
I don't think we have to do it in committee, but do we?
No, you would suspend and then offer this amendment in the committee so that we'll have it in time for tomorrow.
Okay, then that would be my request.
Broaden to all administrative.
You're offering another amendment.
Just to add that any administrative offices be approved by the council going forward.
Well, we have, if we're going to vote on that, we have to have another vote. We already have, the amendment's already passed. So
Okay, well, I was doing as Mr. Jameson
For
suggested.
another amendment.
Okay, then I make the motion to amend all administrative buildings.
All right, now you submit that to a vote.
All right, we have a motion. You've heard the motion to add it to all metro, amendment to add to all metro. If you want discussion, you'll have that after we get the motion. Okay, stand by. I don't see your name. Okay, Councilor Henderson.
I thought we had to move to suspend the rules, then we had to vote on that before he could move his amendment.
That's correct.
In the committee meeting? Okay. I was under the impression in a committee meeting that wasn't necessary, but.
Okay, again, it was just a point of order. It was a question on my part.
Stand by. Vice Chair Winger.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with whether we're suspending the rules. Is this within the caption of the bill so that we could even consider suspending the rules? And if it's not within the caption of the bill, is this doable, or do we move and take care of this and then at a later date strengthen the council system by, in separate order, taking on what Councilman Glover is suggesting?
Right. It does change. It would require a change in the caption of the bill. And let me back up to the suspension of the rules. If there's a suspension because this was not submitted per Rule 11 timelines, if there's one objection, then that eliminates the attempt to bring the second amendment. If Councilman Glover then moves to suspend that rule, then you'd require two objections. The nature of the amendment, because it broadens it to all administrative buildings, I think does change the caption of the bill. And I think even with the suspension of the rules, that would be a separate piece of legislation. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
And I think my real point that I'm really trying to make here, I mean, I prefer to defer, or actually, I think the real point is that I thought we had an agreement. The mayor sent us a letter along with the sheriff. I thought we had an agreement that, it would be decided and nothing would be done until it was brought. And so I guess that's my point here. Not to, rub elbows or make anybody mad, but in the same breath, I mean, if we're now getting down to saying this council has to start approving buildings and administrative buildings, then I just think we're getting a little beyond where we need to be.
I think what you may want to consider is a separate ordinance to that effect if you do want this applying to all ordinances, so all administrative buildings from this point forward.
Okay, then I'll withdraw mine then.
Okay, we're back on the original discussion of the amendment. I have several in line. If you're not going to discuss the original amendment, if you would just hit your request to speak again, please. All right, Councilman Mendez.
Thank you. I think this is a question for Mr. Jameson. And I'm sorry, I hadn't focused on the amendment before today. So what you described were, as amended, this would let Metro use bonding capacity to engage in planning, design, and community engagement?
Correct, that it would allow disbursements of any proceeds for those three limited areas: planning, design, and community engagement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor
As amended.
on 312 as amended? Opposed? Resolution passes. BL 2016-313, Pridemore Allen and others are sponsors, approves a license agreement between Metro Department of Parks and Recreation and the State Commissioner of Transportation to construct and maintain a multi-use pedestrian greenway in Davison County. Do I have a motion? Duly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes.
That's it.
And that concludes the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.